16. The Coven. The Knights of 11. Chapter 16. The Coven. The Knights of 11.
The Queen.
The attendant sniffed in his pink and yellow uniform, standing tall at the door to Castle Jolie.
I'm to believe the Queen sent for you.
Hester, Annadil, and middle-aged Dot blinked at him. The three witches in filthy black hoods held at the necks by a pair of guards.
Found them sneaking across the border, smelling like skunks,
said a guard.
We weren't sneaking. The Queen invited us,
Hester snapped.
We've travelled for days to get here. We're her guests.
The attendant snorted.
Throw them out.
We have an urgent message about Princess Bettina, Dot insisted, flapping her arms. She's been
kin to us, like family,
Hester cut in, glowering at Dot before puffing up at the attendant.
Is this how you treat friends of the princess? Tell the Queen we're here.
The Queen is in a meeting with her knights,
the attendant sniffed.
And nevers aren't permitted inside Castle Jolie, especially after pirates laid waste to our kingdom, with whom you no doubt sympathize.
We're nevers, not thugs,
Annadil scorned.
Would you deny your Queen's guests because you object to their appearance?
Hester piled on.
No wonder pirates target your realm to punish such arrogance. No wonder the snake chose your land to occupy, with people like you serving it.
The attendant hesitated, with a rankled scowl. Then he rolled his eyes and flung open the door.
Last time someone disturbed the Queen, she made him kneel as a dinner table for her children's supper. Let's hope you suffer something far worse.
He clacked away, glaring back at the guards.
Don't let them touch anything.
The witches followed the guards inside. Why didn't we tell the truth? Dot whispered to Hester, about Bettina being killed.
Who would he think killed her? Especially with a creepy adult looming around Annie and me like you've kidnapped us,
Hester retorted.
We need to see the Queen. That's why Tedros sent us, to get her help fighting the snake. And for that, we'll tell as many lies as we need to.
Such a wise leader, said Dot. Hester looked touched. Dot smiled back. But am I lying or telling the truth?
Point taken,
Hester growled. 10 minutes later, the witches were still waiting, the two guards keeping watch from across the foyer. Hester's eyes were red, her nose runny, as she sat on a bench beneath a wall of hydrangeas, the pastel pom-pom-shaped petals blanketing every inch of Castle Jolie.
Rats can't pick up the scent of Nicola or Guinevere,
Annadil fretted, her pets returning to her pockets.
Couldn't pick up Marion's scent in Glass Mountain either. Glass Mountain reeked of fungus and blight, and rats won't pick up the scent of anything here but these damn flowers,
Hester muttered, wiping her nose.
Cleaned up the place nice at least. Last time we were here, the snake's pirates pee-peed everywhere," said Dot, plucking a flower and turning it to chocolate. Instantly the wall began an endless loop of music. Tipple-top, joy and jaunt, come and be jolie. Tipple-top, joy and jaunt, come and be jolie. Tipple-top, the guards groaned, but the music gave the witches cover to talk. "Let me handle negotiating with the Queen," Hester whispered. "To kill the snake we'll need her Knights of the 11.
"But what if her message was a trap?" Dot asked. "Nick and Guinevere were supposed to come here and there's no trace of them. What if the Queen killed them? What if she's on the snake's side?"
"Don't be daft,"
Hester barbed. But now her chest felt tight.
"Think Robin could have left Maid Marian somewhere else in Glass Mountain?"
Annadil said, still inspecting her rats.
"Somewhere we didn't search." "Robin told Sophie he hid Marian in a sanctuary," said Hester. "Only place like that is the sacred orchard, and she wasn't there."
"Plus, Robin wouldn't have planned on leaving her long," Dot added. "Been 4 days since the wizardry battle. She'd have gone searching for him."
"Stink of the blight would have been enough to drive her off," said Hester, sniffing Dot's clothes. "No wonder the guards found us."
"That camel at school smelled worse," said Dot. "Let's hope Agatha's safe."
"Sooner we kill the snake, sooner we're all safe," said Hester.
By now the music was rattling Hester's skull. "Tipple-top, joy and jaunt, come and be jolie. Tipple-top, joy and jaunt, come and—" A black fist went through the flowers. The song sputtered out. Slowly the witches raised their eyes to a huge man in gold chainmail tinted with pearlescent colours. A mask of mesh covered his nose and mouth like a veil, his dark eyes slashing through them. "The Queen will see you now," he snarled. The witches hurried after him.
"You're a Knight of the 11, Hester said eagerly. "Fiercest warriors in the woods."
"Saddle the horses," the knight barked at a passing page boy. "Queen says the 11 ride tonight." The boy looked alarmed. "But I've just seen the knights. They're in no condition to—" "Now!" the knight roared. The boy scuttled away. With every step the knight grew angrier, his jaw grinding, his fists cracking, and only when they turned the corner did Hester see why. 8 mountainous men stood in their underpants, helping a 9th and 10th disrobe their armour, before they handed this armour to the attendant the witches had encountered outside, now posed at the entrance to a double-doored room. The Black Knight sneered at the witches. "Queen is waiting," he said, stabbing a finger at the doors. Then he turned his ire on the attendant. "This is madness, Jorin, an insult to the knights."
"Turn over your armour, Sepher,"
the attendant said.
"Queen's orders."
Sepher growled and stripped off his chainmail. He shoved it at Jorin, who folded it with the 2 other suits of armour before opening the doors to the witches. Hester led Annadil and Dot inside. the Coven utterly confused, especially since Joran, who once treated them like fleas, was now bowing his head as they entered, then following them in. Annie and Dot clung to Hester as the witches made their way into a small room, muggy and windowless, the floor creaking underfoot. Torches illuminated 8 knights around a table wearing the same pearlescent armour and mesh veils the knights outside had been forced to shed. 3 seats at the table were empty. "The knights ride with 11, the leader spoke at the head of the table, addressing the Coven, "and we are 8, which is why I've brought you here." The leader's pale hands lifted the armoured mask like a funeral veil. Queen Jacinda gazed intensely at them. "Welcome, new knights," she said. Joran put a suit of armour in each of the witches' hands.
"New what?"
Hester said.
We don't understand,"
Annadil stammered. The other knights at the table removed their veils. Dot was so stunned she turned her armour to chocolate. Nicola, Guinevere, Beatrix, Rena, Kiko made Marian. They faced Hester and the witches, who were now dressed in armour and seated at the table with them, Dot feeling the stares at her adult form. Together, with the Queen of Jaunt Jolie, they made 10 knights. The 11th sat at the far end, a stout woman, hair pulled back into a bun. "Fridegund Brunhilde," she identified herself, Dean of Arbed House at the Foxwood School for Boys. Slowly the story unfolded. Nicola and Guinevere had come to Jaunt Jolie to ask for the Queen's help fighting the snake, help that the Queen refused given her fear of Japheth's retaliation. But then Maid Marian arrived in Jaunt Jolie with news of Bettina's death, which she'd learned of from Robin Hood. When Robin failed to retrieve her from Glass Mountain, Marian had gone searching for him. She found her love in Putsy's forest, skim-stabbed and bleeding. Robin urged Marian to go to Jaunt Jolie, to tell Queen Jacinda what became of him and her daughter, and ask for shelter. That was his dying wish, Marian recounted, her voice tremoring. But what about my wish? I can't ever see Robin again. I can't claim the Storian for myself and rewrite the story. No magic can bring him back, not even a wish in Aladdin's cave or the darkest sorcerer's spell. She smeared away tears. Robin made me promise to hide, but there can be no hiding any more. He's gone, my true love. The snake took him from me. "He took my daughter too," said Queen Jacinda. "And my dad," said Dot. "And our Millicent," said Beatrix with Rena. "And my Lancelot," said Guinevere, white-haired and drawn. "He's made us widows, orphans, and killed our children. He finds the thing you love the most and destroys it, like the darkest curse. But I won't let him take Tedros. Arthur left him his ring for a reason. Tedros can bring us back to balance, to truth, if only he gets the chance. Which is why we're all here, said Queen Jacinda, to defend your son, to give the true lion his back. Then I am your servant, your highness, said Guinevere. Two queens bowed to each other, bonded by loss. As for how they'd all made it to this table, Jacinda had the answers to that. After Marian came to her, she'd kept Bettina's murder a secret. Even her husband, the king, was left in the dark. She sent him on a mission to Runyon Mills and packed her younger children off to their grandmothers. Then she went to work. I didn't trust the Knights of 11 to avenge Bettina's death, said the Queen. For one thing, they still believe in King Rian, and I have no proof of Japheth's ruse, nor do I even have evidence of my daughter's death. Inquiries to both Camelot and Putsey yielded nothing but silence and stonewalling. And then, of course, there was the last time I sent my knights to confront the snake, when his pirates first invaded my kingdom. They were lured by the snake to a sleeping willow and put into a slumber before striking a single blow, while me and my children were noosed up to hang. No, I needed to find better knights to fight Japheth this time, equipped with more than weapons or brute strength. Knights who had a stake in this war, knights who knew the depths of love and loss, knights who would persist until the end. Jacinda looked around the table. Such knights wouldn't be found amongst men. Thus, Nicola and Guinevere were summoned back to the castle where they joined Maid Marian. At the same time, the Queen had been hearing of 3 warrior princesses who'd been attacking Agatha bounty hunters in the forest ever since Lion's Mane had announced the second test to the woods. She had these girls brought in too, Beatrix, Rena, and Kika, which made 7 knights for her table. The 8th came easier than expected, Dean Brunhilde of Arbed House, who Jean Joly had sent many an Everboy to for rehabilitation. Only this time it was Dean Brunhilde who had travelled to Jean Joly for help, asking if its queen had noticed any similarities between the masked attacker who'd tried to hang her and the new cold-eyed king, which left 3 knights still to be named, said the Queen, turning to the witches. And I know the tale of Sophie and Agatha well enough to be certain that there are no fiercer protectors of justice than you. She smiled towards Dot. At any age. It's highly temporary, Dot contended. Jacinda looked at the rest. So now our work begins. Knights of 11. But what work, Your Highness? Beatrix asked. The whole woods is after Agatha. If a single person finds her and brings her to Japheth, he'll win the second test. He'll be a step away from being the one true king, from having the Storians' powers and wiping us out before we ever have the chance to fight him. Beatrix, Kiko, and I tried to stop the Agatha hunters, Rena agreed. But every kingdom has people searching for her. Even in my homeland of Shazabah, my father is leading the search for Agatha. He thinks I'm still at school. He has no clue I'm fighting for the rebels. If he did, he'd throw me in prison or have me killed. No one is on Tedros's side anymore. We're outnumbered by thousands. And we don't even know where Agatha's gone, said Dot. The camel swept her, Tedros, and Sophie off to some secret place, which means we don't know how to protect her, said Beatrix. If killing Agatha is the second test, imagine what the third test will be, Kiko peeped. Nor can we just go riding after the snake. The snake killed Robin and the sheriff, the two strongest men I knew, said Marian, with a quick glance at Dot. And their strength was surpassed by Lancelot's, who suffered the same fate, Guinevere added. Marian is right. We're not warriors. We can't succeed in killing a monster where men have failed. On the contrary, Jacinda sat taller. True, we cannot win the second test for Tedros. Surviving the death warrant hung on his princess is his quest alone. But there are other weapons we have to defeat the snake. Cleverness, resilience, insight, weapons that a woman wields far better than a man. It's why we wear the armor of the 11 now. Dot and Annadil peeked at Hester, both unsettled that they'd come here to get the help of knights and were instead asked to be those knights. But Hester was staring squarely at the Queen, intrigued. When Betty chose to continue writing for the Courier even after the others fled, I asked her why. The Queen said, why risk her life when she could be safe? And she told me with so much conviction, not everyone can see the truth, Mother. It is so easy to be blind to it. But those of us who can see the truth have the responsibility to help others see it too, even if it's dangerous, even if it puts us at risk. The truth is worth it. The Queen's voice wavered. We know the truth about Japheth, all of us. We just need the woods to see it. And for that, we must have courage. Like my daughter had, like your Lancelot and your Robin and your father. She looked at Guinevere, Marian, Dot. We may not be knights in body, but we are knights in heart, and I'd take that knight against our enemy over any other kind. This time there was no argument. The Queen turned to Dean Brunhilde. You've known the snake since he was a boy. What does he want? Why does he seek the Storians' power? He's hateful, pure evil from the beginning, said the Dean instantly. You've made a life out of taking those believed to be evil and leading them to good, the Queen pointed out. It was your mission at Arbed House. This one thwarted your efforts, but surely you had a glimpse into his soul along the way. Evil, yes, hateful, surely. But his hatred might be the chink in his armour, if we can come to understand it. He was always a beast, Brunhilde dismissed. From the moment his mother brought him and Rian to me, RJ was bitter and cruel in all the ways Rian was earnest and warm. What does RJ stand for? Nicola asked. J for Japheth and R for... It's been more than a decade. My files have his records, said Dean Brunhilde. We searched for them in your office, Rian's and Japheth's files, said Nicola. But we found a squirrely nut to Merlin that claimed you'd hidden them somewhere. The Dean bolted straight. You? You were the one who broke in? And now we're on the same side, so it doesn't matter, said Nicola, impatient. We found other files in your office, a letter from Auric to Japheth, proof of their friendship. But we couldn't find Japheth's. Where did you hide it? Dean Brunhilde crossed her arms. I'm not confiding in a thief. Perhaps you'll confide in us once you, too, lose everything you love, said Maid Marian. Dean Brunhilde felt the eyes of Marian and two queens upon her.
That letter from Auric to Japheth, said Hester delicately, turning to Nicola. What did it say?
Nicola opened her mouth, but Dean Brunhilde cut her off. They were my students, she said briskly. Auric and RJ were close. Auric was the only one who could keep RJ's rages at bay even more than Rian. Perhaps they recognized something in each other, two poisoned hearts that were each other's antidote. But Rian was RJ's twin. There was jealousy there. Auric envious of the bond Rian had with his brother, Rian resentful of Auric and RJ's friendship. It all boiled over when Auric stabbed Rian in the head. Somehow Rian managed to survive, and when the time came, I let the students vote on Auric's fate. RJ begged his brother to forgive Auric. If Rian forgave Auric, so would the others. But Rian voted to expel him instead. Auric was sent back into the woods. Other than his letters to RJ, I don't know what became of him.
Ended up at the school for boys, torturing everyone in sight, Annadil muttered. Unleashed his fury on all of us until Lady Lesso stabbed him. His own mother.
Dean Brunhilde took this in. So Auric might still be alive today if Rian had forgiven him.
At least Rian did one thing right, Kiko sighed.
Hester caught Annadil and Dot staring at her. No one else in the room knew what the Coven did. No one else knew what Sophie had told them at school.
No, he didn't do it right, Hester said. Rian should have forgiven Auric. He should have followed the rules of good and evil. Rule number 1, the good forgive. And Rian wanted to be good. Taking Auric from Japheth was his fatal mistake.
What are you saying? Beatrix asked.
Japheth killed Rian, and it all traces back to him losing Auric, said Hester. That's why Japheth wants to be the one true king. That's why he wants the powers of the Storian for Auric. He wants to bring his friend back to life.
Dean Brunhilde froze in her seat. Sweat beaded Hester's forehead. The room sucked of air. Love, friendship, these are the oldest stories of time, said Queen Jacinda finally, and not just the domain of good. An evil schoolmaster believed love gave him the right to claim the Storian, just as the snake believes love gives him the right to replace it. It's not the pen they ultimately seek to control. It's love itself. But love can't be controlled. Love requires surrender and faith, a trust in the winds of fate that the darkest hearts reject. If Auric and Japheth were meant to be together, they already would be. But fate is a power beyond our grasp. That's why we fight for the pen, because man cannot be trusted to write his own fate. And the snake shows us why. He believes fate made a mistake in separating him and Auric, that blood must be spilled over and over until he claims the power to rewrite that mistake and bring his friend back to him, even if it spawns nothing but lies and murder and suffering along the way. She raised her eyes to her knights, and it is this rejection of fate, this terrible misunderstanding that is his greatest weakness, said the Queen. We cannot help Tedros win the second test. For him to kill Agatha is unfathomable. He has no way to win. But what if we could make Japheth abandon the test too? What if we could make him surrender the tournament altogether? Now that sounds unfathomable, Beatrix scoffed. Other knights murmured agreement. Nothing could make Japheth give up the crown, said Dean Brunhilde. Nothing except the person that's making him fight for the crown in the first place, Hester countered. Everyone looked at her. Japheth wants his ever after with Auric, the witch reasoned. So we have to make him believe that Auric never wanted one with him, that Auric is rejecting his plan, that he doesn't want to be brought back. The Queen is right. It just might work. Auric is dead, said Beatrix, and unless I'm missing something, no one but the Storian has the power to raise people from the grave. We don't need to raise him from the grave, said Anadil, catching on to Hester's plan. We just need to make it seem as if he has, long enough for him to give Japheth a message, a brutal, undeniable message. A message which will make him doubt, the Queen confirmed. If his guard is down, then we stand a chance. Dot frowned. How can you fake a message from the dead? Only one place, Maid Marian realized, looking at Jacinda. a faraway cave where anything can come true for the right price. Even a message from the grave."
"Aladdin's cave," said Guinevere. "The lost cave of wishes."
"Lost cave?" Kiko wisped. "How do you find a lost cave?" "You ask the last man who found it, of course," the Queen of Jaunt Jolie replied, her eyes fixed on the knight a few seats down. Eyes wide, sunk in her chair, pale as a ghost.
"My father!"
Rena gasped.